Normally, you wouldn't think of an archaeological park as being a great wildlife viewing area. But being situated along an oxbow lake of the Arkansas River and not too far from the Grand Prairie, wildlife viewing opportunities here are quite abundant. And so this is where we begin this week's show, here at Toltec Mounds Archaeological State Park south of Scott. And then we'll take you to the Arkansas Museum of Natural Resources at Smackover, which portrays the 1920s oil boom of that area. And we'll close it out at Fort Smith National Historic Site. So now let's explore all the mounds and the wildlife here at Toltec Mounds Archaeological State Park. This National Historic Landmark is one of the largest and most impressive Native American mound sites in the lower Mississippi River Valley. 18 mounds were constructed by bushel and basket load of soil during a period from 600 to 1050 AD.
The Native Americans that would have been living here, we don't know their name because they were prehistoric Native Americans. They lived and existed here prior to any European contact, and really the only thing we know of them is through archaeological evidence. We don't know the name that they called themselves, for example. Archaeologists have given them a name, the Plum Bayou culture, just because of a local stream that's in the area that's called the Plum Bayou. But we know that they were occupying this site, and we know that this site had a great significance to those people. We know that this was the cultural center and the capital, if you will, of their civilization. It was the highest of the chiefs and the highest of the medicine men and the highest of the priests that lived in this site. Those folks and their immediate family is all that we believe that lived right in this site. And those people had influence over a much greater number of people, the entire Plum Bayou culture that lived in present-day Pulaski County, Lonoke County, and the surrounding area. And at certain times of the year, through archaeological evidence of tremendous feasts, we know that those people congregated here, whether it was for political reasons or cultural reasons or religious reasons. They would have big festivals of some type, and this was the center. This is where everyone came to for those big grand ceremonies.
And the way the mounds are situated, there's a purpose to all this.
This is very much a planned city, if you will. We sometimes don't give the Native Americans full credit for their engineering know-how, but these mounds are laid out in a very specific manner. There's very specific distances between the mounds, and the alignment of the mounds is such that it serves as an earth calendar, an earthen calendar, where through solar alignments you can follow the different months of the season. In particular, the spring and fall equinoxes, the summer solstice.
An archaeological study of the mound sites in 1883 proved that these mounds were not built by the Toltecs of Mexico, but by ancestors of Native Americans who lived in the southeastern U.S. Of the 3 mounds that remain here, the tallest, 49.5 feet in height, is also the largest in the state. Referred to as Mound A, it's located alongside an oxbow lake of the Arkansas River called Mound Lake. This same lake provided the Native Americans here with water for cooking, bathing, and as a resource for food and travel. This is also an ideal area for wildlife viewing, especially migratory waterfowl and shorebirds. A boardwalk will lead you around Mound A and out into the water to an observation deck and the main wildlife viewing area.
the wildlife that you'll find today on a typical visit is in some ways the same and in some ways different than the wildlife that the Native Americans would have been experiencing. In ways that they're the same, lots of waterfowl can be found down along Mound Lake when you're out on the boardwalk going behind Mound A. Some of the ducks and other waterfowl that you'll see on a typical visit to Toltec Mounds would have been very commonplace for the Native Americans to see. And they would have been interested in those birds not only for their beauty, but also for the potential meal that they could provide. And same way for our Arkansas duck hunters, they still see a meal on the table when they see a flock of ducks. But these are protected, being in a state park. And certainly, if you come out on a visit, you can still see those today in the same way that the Native Americans would have seen them. Other wildlife that you can't see today that would have been seen by the Native Americans is on a day like today, the sky could literally be blacked out by a flock of passenger pigeons if they happen to be flying overhead. They were so plentiful that reports of the passenger pigeon literally blocking out the sun like an eclipse, but they're not to be found anymore. They were hunted to extinction in the 1800s, and there was a common bird here the time that the Indians were occupying the site, and they'd certainly served as a meal for those Native Americans on a regular basis. And through archaeological evidence, we know that they were consuming those birds to provide their nourishment, but they're not to be seen today. They are extinct.
So pay a visit to Toltec Mounds Archaeological State Park near Scott and experience the wildlife and explore the Native American past of more than 1,000 years ago. The Arkansas Museum of Natural Resources near Smackover may look like your typical run-of-the-mill museum on the outside. Along with an old oil derrick, what's out here is just for starters of your exploration into this area's past.
If you have a traveler driving in, maybe from Louisiana or from Texas, they are very surprised when they pull up and they see this facility. From the highway, it doesn't look as big as it really is. You see this large facility, but you really don't realize just how large it is, and you have no idea whatsoever what's inside. But the people that do come are greatly surprised and go back and tell their friends, and that's really where we get a lot of our visitation, by word of mouth. You've got to see this place.
And gotta see it, you definitely do. What you will experience here is unlike at any other museum.
It's been said that Smackover was one of the wildest booms in the country. And we don't really know how many people came through because it was a very transit community. When oil was discovered in 1922, we had about 100 people in Smackover. El Dorado was a small community in 1921 when oil was discovered there. But when oil was discovered, it instantly, thousands upon thousands of people came. Some people say that Smackover could have had upwards of 26,000 people. However, we don't know because there was no census taker. You had no one taking a complete count of how many people were there. We could have actually had up to 45,000 people. We really don't know. Because people would come in, they would work for a little bit, and then they would go on. They were called boomers. They would go on to the next boom or do the next type of job. Some especially college age boys, they would come in, work for the summer, and then they would be gone.
Walking through what represents an oversized drill hole, your unique time tunnel experience begins. To discover the origins of oil, you are taken on a 200 million year voyage back in time in a high-tech environment of a time capsule, beginning at the bottom of an ancient Jurassic sea. This ultra-magnified view of ancient sea life reveals the true creatures that led to the eventual formation of oil. When you step off your time machine, you'll suddenly be catapulted onto Main Street in Smackover during the 1920s, the heyday of the oil boom. I think I'll check out the Horseshoe Cafe here. In the Smackover Journal newspaper office, you can witness firsthand all the bustle over the oil boom news of the day. Walking the street here, you can almost feel the fever and excitement of the town's residents. Everyone is talking oil. Hollywood couldn't have created a more elaborate and realistic setting. In fact, it is so real that you actually feel as if you have indeed traveled back in time to the 1920s. It's no wonder why this museum has won 30-some awards, including Arkansas Museum of the Year twice.
I don't think people realize in a small community like Smackover that a facility like this exists. However, we don't just serve one particular area, one particular town. We are here to focus on Arkansas's natural resources, primarily oil and brine, used for bromine. We have won numerous awards for our exhibits, programs, conservation of our artifacts. And that's what we're really proud of, is providing the people what they need, as far as a better understanding of their history and preserving that history.
A history that you can physically step into here at the Arkansas Museum of Natural Resources. There's just one thing, though. Hello? Hello? Thelma? How do I get back to the 21st century? It was one of the first U.S. military posts established in the Louisiana Territory. Overlooking the site where the Arkansas and Poteau rivers meet, the U.S. Army opted this for a fort. And when soldiers arrived here in 1817, they named this site Fort Smith after their commanding officer, Thomas Smith. Today, here at the Fort Smith National Historic Site, you can walk where Mexican War and Civil War soldiers drilled, pause along the Trail of Tears, and witness where justice was served.
The first fort here was a wood stockade, looked like your stereotypical wood stockade military fort that you see back east farther. It only lasted about 8 years. The city of Fort Smith kind of grew up around it, and the influence of liquor and other influences on the soldiers kind of disrupted the military operations. So they moved over into Indian Territory. It wasn't farther where it wasn't allowed. It became empty here. Of course, the citizens that had moved to Fort Smith were a little upset because all their income moved away from them. So they petitioned Congress. They built the second Fort Smith, which was a very substantial military fort, especially for out west. It had a stone wall around it, big brick buildings. I mean, it was a fairly impressive place. But by that time, most of the hostilities were farther out west, and it became more of a supply base. Supplies would come upriver, which was pretty well, water levels would allow it to come up this far pretty regular. Then from here it was loaded on wagons and went to the forts out in farther west from here. And then during the Civil War, the Union, when the war started, the Confederates came up from Little Rock, took the fort over. The Union left. The Confederates stayed here and launched their military operations into Pea Ridge, Prairie Grove, and on up into Wilson's Creek from here. And then later on, as the war progressed, the Union came out, chased them out, and they stayed here. And it became a Union base for operations for the rest of the war. It was a little bit almost like Vietnam. You know, the Union controlled here. Out in the countryside, it was anybody's guess who was in charge. So it was a rough time during the Civil War in this part of the country.
Probably what this historic site is most well known for is this man, Judge Isaac Parker. For 21 years, he held the bench of the U.S. Court for the Western District of Arkansas. Parker was notorious for his swift Western-style justice and became known as the hanging judge.
Negroes and a few Indians. You better step on inside now.
He's become that way in the 20th century anyhow. You know, during the period when he was here, he was a beloved member of the community. You know, he was on the school board, the first hospital board. He started the first Arkansas State Fair in this part of the country, and so he was an upstanding citizen here, and nobody thought of him as so much as a hanging judge or anything like that. It was when literature and the other stories started in the early 19th or 20th century that all came about.
Parker sentenced more people to hang than any other judge in American history, 160. But less than half of those, only 79, actually walked up these gallows to meet their fate. Fort Smith National Historic Site is also part of the Trail of Tears National Historic Trail. A river overlook interprets the impact of the removal of 5 eastern tribes, the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Muskogee or Creek, and Seminole.
Arkansas has had members of all 5 tribes that were relocated from the southeast come up the Arkansas River. Here was the last stop before Indian Territory on the river. And they, if the treaty said they would get so much supplies, you know, before they entered Indian Territory, this is where they were issued. And then later on, Fort Smith became the trading center, and folks came here to get their supplies and materials. I mean, the city of Fort Smith, not so much the fort. So that's why it was a nice landing spot high up here on this bluff. The soldiers stayed here, issued the supplies. Then they either went up the river or they could cross right here and go by land. But so a lot of them went on up the river. Obviously, the tribes that were farther over in Oklahoma went as far as they could in those days on the river, and then they had to walk.
On the ground right there behind me. There's a long line of them. Walk a little bit.
With such varied history here, area school groups are constantly being presented with a unique outdoor classroom.
This was the first fort that was built here in Fort Smith as far back as 1817. So the stones that you see there were put there by soldiers that were dressed like I am. Now the soldiers that came here were called riflemen, and they were the elite soldiers of the military during the early 1800s. They were kind of like Army Rangers or Green Berets. Have you guys heard of those kind of soldiers? No? Well, Special Forces? Yeah. Well, these guys were like that. They were the best soldiers that the military had, and they had a reason for sending them here. They sent them here to keep the peace between 2 different Indian tribes, the Cherokee and the Osage. Have you guys ever heard of the Cherokee? Yep. Yeah? How about the Osage? Oh, very good.
Since this was the site where both Mexican War and Civil War soldiers drilled, students get to experience a little of what that was like.
The thing that's important here is everybody needs to keep it straight up. That way when you turn, you don't bump your buddy in the back of the head, okay? Okay, that's very important. So we're going to go ahead and walk down to the river, And I'm going to take us to the path over there, and we're going to take a walk down to the river. And if you guys start getting tired, let me know, and I'll show you how to carry your rifle in a different way, okay? Okay, so. We're almost there. Company, halt! Left face. Do that direction. Okay, now, when I tell you to order arms, you grasp your musket up here. Now order arms, so put your hand up here and bring it down to your right side. Okay, now, how would you like to have to carry around a real musket that's a lot heavier than that, like mine, all day long? You guys would. Well, it would get exhausting after a while, I know that. Now, another thing about Rifle Regiment is they wear green. You probably wondered about this funny coat, haven't you, while I'm wearing it? Well, it was actually considered an outdoorsman coat back then. You know how a lot of hunters you see wear those camouflage coats now? Well, this was the equivalent to that back then. And they had yellow trim on it, because that was, the green and yellow were actually colors of the Rifle Regiment. And the idea was if it was green, it could blend in with the woods and they wouldn't be able to see them as well.
Having an experience like this, students gain a greater insight into, say, all the steps that were involved just to prepare a muzzleloader to fire.
All right, cast about. That was actually their order to put it right in front of them. And then prime, you pour your powder down there and you push your bullet in the end. Withdraw rammer. So they would withdraw their rammer. Ram down cartridge. Then you ram down the cartridge. Then you come back up to shoulder arms. And then at shoulder arms, you wait for the order, make ready. Make ready, you cock it, take aim. They would step into it and fire. Everybody hold their ears. Take aim, fire. There.
As one might guess, a history lesson in this type of setting makes all the difference in the world in a student's retention factor and making sense of it all.
It's a better experience than having to study about it and already knowing about it before you go back to school, so you'll know more.
What do you think about going through all those steps to fire a musket off a rifle?
I wouldn't want to be in a war.
So check out all the history that there is to experience here at Fort Smith National Historic Site. And for more on this destination, plus many of our others, and to view our maps or to order a copy of an episode, visit our website, aetn.org/Exploring Arkansas. And we'll see you again the next time for another exciting adventure on Exploring Arkansas.
Hold their ears. Okay, fire!